G'day, how you doing? I'm Camui Kushi and today we're taking a look at a class showcase for Final Fantasy XIV Mobile. I've seen a couple of uploads of this video, none from the official channel, so I'm not sure if these are a re-upload from a different social media network or if they're user created and someone else just re-uploaded them without permission. But I've linked the video in the description for the one that we're about to watch right now for anyone who hasn't seen it. I'm going to be running it at half speed, so we can actually see what's going on. So let's get to it. Yeah. So first up we have Warrior, and you'll see right away in the middle of the action buttons we have an axe icon. And all of the jobs have an icon for their weapon right here, smack bang in the middle of all of the other job actions, which seems to execute their basic attack combo. You'll also notice down here there's a little shield icon, I think has the roll actions because all of the tanks have a little shield one, and the other jobs have a different icon that kind of lines up with tank, healer, melee, ranged, caster, etc. So yeah, around here are icons that are always present. And here you have these icons here with the dotted lines that appear to be procs. So in some cases they're procced off other skills, and they will often disappear once they've been used. There's the job gauge, target, health, the target's target, character health, debuffs and buffs, and some other icons over here that I don't think really matter. Oh, well, there's the chat one, and that's probably emotes. Mounts, I guess, and then that's just a menu button. Don't know what this button does. Maybe changes orientation. So yes, that's the general layout of the game screen, and there's the cast bar for the enemy as well. So we'll see, you see right away. Actually, let's go back a smidge. I said I was putting it on half speed so we could keep up with it, but it's so fast already. Actually, let's go through the job icons first. So up here, we've got Vengeance. Obviously, that's going to be the MIT. Thrill of Battle. They don't use either of these in this video, so we can't really comment on it. Raw Intuition, they don't use that either. The aforementioned roll menu. Then we've got Infuriate, Overpower, and Onslaught. And then we have Inner Release, and then Fell Cleave and Upheaval. So they've basically jumped straight into Infuriate right as the screen has changed. And then it goes straight into doing an Inner Chaos when you look at the action that they do. Bam. That's the old Inner Chaos action. They changed it in Dawn Trail to be a bigger Fell Cleave, but that's the old animation for Inner Chaos. Then they do Inner Release. Blam. And then that changes Fell Cleave into this other action, which looks like a Fella Cleave. So in the current desktop release of Final Fantasy XIV, when you do Inner Release, you get 3 free Fell Cleaves. And I think that's what these are. I think they're meant to be the free Fell Cleaves you get, but they've changed it into a different ability, so you can kind of see that, yes, I've used the free ones up. So there's 1, then they use Upheaval, then there's 2, then there's 3, oh, there's 4. And then it changes back into Fell Cleave, and that last Fell Cleave used Gauge. And then then they used Overpower, and then another Fell Cleave, and that used the rest of the Gauge. So a lot going on there. Next up, we have Paladin. Let's have a little looky at Paladin. So right off the bat, icons. They've started with a fair bit of Shield Oath Gauge. Sentinel, and they've already used Fight or Flight. Gosh, they're quick off the bat, aren't they? Some new icon. It looks kind of like the Guardian icon, but also kind of different. I'm not sure what this is. They don't use it in the video. The roll actions icon, like I suggested previously. Some new ability that I feel like might be the Atonement Actions button. We'll get to that in a bit. Circle of Scorn, Intervene. So we've got a little gap closery there. Then we've got Passage of Arms, Shield Bash, of all things, and Holy Circle. So right off the bat, you can see they use Fight or Flight, which is a 10-second buff. Very short, but everything seems to have a short cooldown, which is very interesting. Then they go into using Sentinel. Bam. Then you see they use their basic attack combo here now. So got a couple of hits of that. Then they go into Holy Circle. And then that looks like maybe Atonement. But that looks like Royal Authority, which is really strange. So that's a very interesting thing for them to do. It could also be that the other one's a different animation for Goring Blade, but Goring Blade is like a single strike, so I'm not really sure. Then they go and do a couple more basic attacks here. Bam. Then a Circle of Scorn, whoosh. And then they do a little Shield Bash. And then they do another basic attack. And then they go into Passage of Arms. Oh, they did use an Intervene in there as well. So yes, again, a lot going on. Let's have a look at Bard now. Okay, so for icons, pause. We've got what looks like Troubadour, but when you kind of pause things, you can see that it's actually a song menu. So right off the bat, they choose to use Army's Pan. So let's just have a little look at what's going on here. So we've got this icon here for the song menu. What looks like Apex Arrow. Something, possibly Repelling Shot. It's a new icon, but that looks kind of like someone moving backwards. Roll Action button. Venomous Bite. Shadow Bite. And Leg Graze. And then over here, we've got Raging Strikes. And pretty soon you'll see a Rain of Death proc will show up here, and a Pitch Perfect proc will show up here. And of course, the basic attack button right in the middle, which shows the weapon icon. I really like the look of these. I think they look very neat. So yes, they start with Army's Pan. And you'll see here it changes the song gauge, and it transforms in a very neat way. Another thing you'll notice about the song gauge is there's this little bar right here. And I think what that does, I think you need to let the song play this long to get the effect. So for Army's Pan, to get the fast, whatever the effect is in this, who knows. But for, oh, you can actually see the movement icon down here as well. So that's another piece of UI. So I believe this is to show optimal length of letting Army's Pan play. And then you should just change songs when it gets this far. Which is interesting. It makes me wonder if they'll do something like that in the desktop version to show you should probably change songs around here, because you don't usually play songs for their full duration as Bard on the desktop version, so that's interesting. So Army's Pan, then they go into Raging Strikes. You can see there's the cooldown there. 45 seconds, quite short. And it's also a short buff. Everything seems to be moving a lot quicker in this. Then they go into Leg Graze. And then that procs Rain of Death, which is very interesting. Then I believe they do Venomous Bite, yes. Then Shadow Bite after that. Yeah, there it goes. And then you see they hit the basic attack button, and they do a couple of basic attacks. Then they go into Apex Arrow. And then another basic attack, but and see, you can see that it's a combo button, because after using the basic attack a couple of times, that transformed the animation into what looked like Refulgent Arrow. So I think that's very interesting. You've got the same button. It basically works like the PvP combo button. You press it, you press it, you press it, and it does different attacks, which is very interesting. And we'll see more of that when we get to Monk. After that, they changed to Wanderer's Minuet, which you can see here. There is a button for the Pitch Perfect proc, but you've also got these icons here, which I believe shows when it is optimal to use Pitch Perfect. So bam. Let's go back a little bit. We missed a couple of things after the Wanderer's Minuet. So they did basic attack, and then they used Pitch Perfect then. So that's very interesting. That is a completely different animation for Pitch Perfect. I'm not sure what it does, but it did something to the enemy that wasn't just shooting some mystery lasers. So it looks like it has a different effect. Very interesting though. Very interesting. Again, a lot going on. Okay, next up, Black Mage. And once again, we're going to look at the icons. And right off the bat, they use ley lines. Right here, 60-second cooldown. Up top, we've got a Nokian, and you'll see in a little bit that transforms into Blizzard 4 and Fire 4. Then we've got Freeze between the lines, the Roll Actions button, then Blizzard 3 and Fire 3, Thunder 3 for some reason, not just Thunder, and Flare. Then you'll see some more icons showing up over here that look like they might be instant cast procs, because they change depending on what phase they're in and what the last spell used was. So let's have a little look at that. First of all, they've used ley lines, then they go straight into Thunder. Bam. And it looks like they get an insta-cast Thunder proc. Then they go Fire 3. And then for some other reason, they go into Fire 3 again. Bam. And you can see here, that's Grant Astral Fire level 3. And you've got the countdown for it and everything, just like on desktop. Then they do a Nokian. And then they do a couple of basic attacks here. And now you can see here, Enochian's transformed into Blizzard 4 and Fire 4. Now they're about to use Fire 4. Kablam. And now they're about to use Flare. Kablam. And then Blizzard 3 will change them over to Umbral Ice. And then they do another Blizzard 3 for some reason. And then they use that instant proc on a Blizzard 1, it looks like. So you can see here, if you watch, during the different phases, it starts off as a Thunder proc. Then they use Fire and it becomes a Fire proc. And then, after they use some basic attacks, it turns into like this strange purple icon. And then they use Ice. Oh wait, that's Fire. And then it transforms into a Fire icon again. Bam, Flare. And then once they use Blizzard 3, it transforms into an Ice icon. And then that's the last ability they use at the end, is like an instant cast Ice 1. Interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. Summoner. Let's have a little looky at Summoner. So right off the bat, looking at the icons, they've already used Energy Siphon. You can see that right there. But at the top, this looks like the old Searing Light icon from 6.0 that you would see under your pet actions. It's gone now. You can't see it in game. I had to look it up in the Wayback Machine on the job guide on the Internet Archive. But that's the new Summoner icon, and you can see it's divided up into 3 segments. So you've got Garuda, Ifrit, Titan, I believe they are. Then you've got Energy Siphon, Radiant Aegis, that's your little personal shield. The Roll Actions icon, Ruin 3. I feel like this could be in Kindle. It looks kind of like the Searing Light icon, but also it could be an Enkindle icon, because you'll see in a bit, these icons change based on the summon. This is Outburst, and it also becomes the Astral Flow abilities when you cast a summon. There's Ether Charge, Ruin 4 proc, and a Festa proc. So, right off the bat, they already have Energy Siphon and Ether Charge on cooldown. And then they start with Ruin 3, it looks like. Then they go into Summon Garuda. It's very fast. They're very quick on this menu. So you can kind of see, if you look here, they kind of tap it and drag into the angle of what they want to use. So in this case, Garuda's in the top left. So you can see they dragged after the tap and then summoning Garuda. You can see these icons have changed. That's changed to the icon for Emerald Catastrophe, even though the move it does is Emerald Right. The icon is for Emerald Catastrophe. And this looks like the Summon Garuda Eggy button, but you'll see it looks like it does the Slipstream move. So, but they do a basic attack before that. Bam, basic attack. Then they do that Slipstream thing. Kablam. And then Emerald Right. Garuda's back. Another basic attack, then a Festa, and now they're summoning Ifrit. And you can see here, this has transformed into Crimson Cyclone, I think it's called. And this is Ruby Catastrophe now, the icon for Ruby Catastrophe. So they summoned Ifrit. They do a basic attack, and then another Festa. So it looks like for each summon you get a proc of Ruin 4 and Festa, perhaps. Then they do Ruby Right. You can see there's the cast for it there. Then they do Summon Titan. They get Titan out. There he is. There's Titan's cheeks fluttering in the wind. Then they do another basic attack. And then they do Topaz Right. And then another basic attack. And then they use that Ruin 4 finally. So there's a lot going on for Summoner. A lot. There's so much going on there. The abilities change the buttons quite a lot. And there's all those procs. It actually looks more involved possibly than a desktop Summoner. Very interesting. Next up, we've got Monk. Let's go with Monk. So right here, you can see the icons. They start by using an Artman. Up the top, we've got Elixir Field. Then we've got a menu button for Riddle of Fire, Riddle of Earth, and Riddle of Wind. Thunderclap, that roll action button that I mentioned. Tornado Kick, interestingly. Meditation, which you'll see later becomes Forbidden Chakra. And then I don't know what this is. This icon's a mystery to me, and I don't believe they use it. But I think what this might be is it transforms... These are attacks that transform based on the current stance that you're in, I believe. We'll see some of that later. And also, you'll see here, there'll be extra procs based on your stance as well. Boot Shine and Dragon Kick appear here, which is very interesting. So they're jumping straight into an Upman. Channeled ability. Kind of funny that an Upman's back on mobile after they got rid of it in Dawn Trail. And then that gives a bunch of buffs. That's the Anatman icon. So who knows what that does? But it also granted this. Don't know what that does either. And it seems that this has given them the ability to use meditation. So that's interesting. Now they're doing some basic attacks. And then they're going through their riddles. So they did a couple of basic attacks. Riddle of Wind, Riddle of Fire, and then Riddle of Earth. And then they do another couple of basic attacks. And you see, after doing a few basic attacks and going through the basic attack combo, Boot Shine and Dragon Kick have appeared as procs here, which is very interesting. They do Tornado Kick now. Bam, there goes Tornado Kick. Very cool move. Nice to see that again. Then they go into Boot Shine, which looks really, really cool. I think that actually looks cooler than the move Boot Shine turns into in Dawn Trail, but let's not talk about that. Then they go into Meditate and Forbidden Chakra. Kablam! Forbidden Chakra. And then they do some more basic attacks. And you see, after doing a couple more basic attacks, now they have Twin Snakes and I think it's Snap Punch? Might not be. But anyway, one of them's twins. They're the Raptor form abilities. So I'm assuming once you use one of these, you use a couple more basic attacks, and then it'll give you the Curl form abilities. So I think that's very interesting. Oh, and you can see here, this is transformed now. The button's transformed. I think that's the form shift button, actually. So it's possible once you've gone through a few of the moves that you get access to other different monk abilities on this button. It seems very similar to how you progress through a combo in PvP linearly, and then that gives you access to different abilities. It seems very interesting. I'm very fascinated by this. They've got a lot of the essence of Monk into this mobile version somehow. It's very fascinating. And then they finish up with Elixir Filtered at the end, which is like a Dragon Ball Z style rain of power shots, essentially, instead of being a beam. I really like the beam version that you have in the desktop, but they've gotten rid of that anyway. In Dawn Trail, there's a different move that it turns into, so the energy beam's gone anyway. This is very cool. I think the animations on this version of Monk might be cooler than we've got in the desktop version of Dawn Trail right now. So let's move on to the next job now. Okay, Dragoon. So let's check out the icons. So right away, they've already used some abilities, because you can see Gear Skogul's on cooldown here, and immediately this icon changed from Blood of the Dragon to Life of the Dragon icon, and there is an animation for Mirage Dive going on. So I'm thinking what this might be is this as the old desktop version pre-Dawn Trail of Blood of the Dragon, where you have to do the 2 Mirage Dives to activate the eye, which I think is kind of funny. But also right here, you can see there's the Blood of the Dragon icon. There's the Dragon Sight, which was removed in Dawn Trail, so that's wild. Got a different icon for Elusive Jump, and you'll see in a little bit that turns into Spine Shatter Dive after use. That roll action button that I mentioned, it's the same fist that Monk has, so that's what makes me think it's a roll action button. Dragonfire Dive, except it's blue. Gear Skogul, and Sonic Thrust. Not Doom Spike, Sonic Thrust. And then of course we've got Battle Litany here, and a Mirage Dive proc will appear here, and High Jump proc will appear roughly here. So right off that they've used Mirage Dive, now they go into Dragon Sight, bam, they use it on themselves, and they use Life of the Dragon, and then Battle Litany comes up next, there it goes. And then for some reason they use Sonic Thrust. So you can see, there it is, Sonic Thrust, the AoE. And then after Sonic Thrust, they do a basic attack, then Elusive Jump into Gear Skogul, and you'll see grants a Mirage Dive proc. Then they use Dragonfire Dive, which gives the High Jump proc, right there. They used Mirage Dive and High Jump, and that's the end of that for Dragoon. So it has all of the Dragoon flavor. It has so many jumps that you want. It has Life of the Dragon. It has Blood of the Dragon. It has Mirage Dive. It has all the iconic Dragoon stuff in a way that I think is even lacking from Dawn Trail Dragoon, which is very funny, but also kind of cool for people who might be missing old school Dragoon, or Endwalker Dragoon at the very least. Now on to Scholar. Let's go Scholar. Have a look at the icons first, again. So they go into a basic attack straight away, but let's ignore that for a second. So right here we've got a new icon, and you'll see in a second it's for Ether Flow abilities. So on one side it's Lustrate, on the other side it's Indomitability. Next to they've got Ether Flow, and you'll see that turns into the Broil 3 icon later, which is interesting. And also gives a buff that looks like Dissipation, so that's... Expedient, a level 90 skill at level 50. That really goes to show, I think, that they're kind of trying to distill the vibe of these jobs for the mobile experience, but leaving room for growth. I think it's very interesting. They've got something like Expedient here. There's the roll action button at Loquium. Their single target heal and shield. Sucker, their AoE heal and shield. And then Energy Drain of all things. Then here you've got Recitation, Fey Illumination, and Whispering Dawn. So interestingly, these have like the little dotted line that looks like it's a proc. But I'm assuming that just means that you do something that brings out the fairy, and then that's what gives you access to these. And you can also see we've got 10 fairy gauge at the moment. So they started off with a basic attack, then they use Recitation. There's a few. So you can see they did varying degrees of attacks and finished with what looked like a broil by doing the basic attack 4 or so times. Now they're doing recitation, which grants them an ether flow and a recitation buff. Then they've gone and used ether flow, and you can see they've used broil 3 there. And it's still broil 3. Then you can see they used this new menu, and they used indomitability. Then they used lustrate, and that used 2 of their ether flow. Also, one of those did use the recitation buff, so they kind of wasted a stack of ether flow by doing that, because using recitation gave them an ether flow as well as the buff. So that's a little bit of a shame there, buddy. You wasted an ether flow. Then they use Fey Illumination, bam, and Whispering Dawn, and they use Energy Drain. Energy Drain? There it is. There's Energy Drain. Very neat effect, animation on that. And they use Sucker. And then they finish with an Adloquium. Very cool. Very neat. Definitely getting the vibe of Scholar in there. And last, but definitely not least, White Mage. So let's go through those job abilities. They've used Presence of Mind already. This person does not waste time. So we've got Holy up top, the most iconic White Mage ability. Presence of Mind, some new icon. It could be their Ethereal Shift, their little dash, because it looks like someone moving forward. Very cool if that's the case. Roll action button, Cure 1. Of all things, Cure 1. That is not the Cure 2 icon, that is Cure 1. Medica 1 as well as the Medica 1 icon. That's very funny to me. A size. And then down here we've got Plenary Indulgence. We've got a Flatus Rapture, so an AoE healed proc, and a Flatus Misery, the attack proc. So that's the Blood Lily proc, and that's the regular Lily proc. Very interesting. It looks like there might only be one of each on the job gauge, so you might just get one proc of each at a time for these. Who knows how you get access to those, though? That's a mystery. It could be they're triggered from Presence of Mind, because they did use Presence of Mind right as it loaded up. It's hard to say. I don't think that's the case. But let's see what else they do. So they've used Presence of Mind. They use Plenary Indulgence, which gives both a buff to the White Mage and the Paladin. Then they used Cure, followed by a Flatus Rapture, and then a Medica, then a Size, and now they're going into a Holy, then an Flatus Misery, bam, and now they're spamming their regular attack button, which does various animations that look kind of like deer. So there you have it. The 8 jobs, or classes, as the video title says, we'll be getting in Final Fantasy XIV Mobile. I gotta say, I find the way they've condensed the jobs into a mobile experience to be pretty interesting. If anything, the jobs look more interesting than they do at level 50 in the original version of the game for desktop and console, honestly. I'm not sure when we'll be seeing a wide release, but I'll be definitely giving it a shot when I have access to it, whenever that is. In the meantime, I hope you're having a blast with Dawn Trail or whatever other games you're playing. And until we meet again, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.